What happens when one of the biggest pop stars in the world sits down for what should be a simple morning show interview, only to face a host who seems determined to tear her down with every question? In just 27 seconds of one particularly cruel comment, a television icon would find herself defending not just her career, but her very dignity on live television, leading to a moment so explosive that cameras kept rolling as security was called, and millions of viewers watched a beloved star reach her breaking point. This is the story of how one morning show appearance turned into one of the most dramatic television moments ever broadcast. The green room backstage at Good Morning America was buzzing with the usual pre-show energy. Britney Spears sat quietly in the makeup chair, her team surrounding her as she prepared for what was supposed to be a promotional interview. She was there to talk about her new music, her upcoming tour, and reconnect with fans who had supported her through everything. After years of struggles that had played out in the public eye, this appearance was meant to be a fresh start, a chance to show the world she was back, and better than ever. But from the moment Britney walked onto that set, something felt off. The lights were bright, almost blinding, as she made her way to the interview couch. The studio audience applauded warmly, genuine fans who had come to see her. She smiled and waved, that famous smile that had launched 1,000 magazine covers. Sitting across from her was Lara Spencer, the veteran host known for her sharp wit and sometimes sharper tongue. But next to Lara sat George Stephanopoulos and Robin Roberts, both looking pleasant and professional as they shuffled their note cards. "Welcome back," Lara said, but there was something in her tone, something that made Britney's publicist, watching from the wings, immediately tense up. It was a coldness masked as politeness, the kind of tone that promises trouble. "Thank you for having me," Britney replied, her voice soft but steady. She had been through media training. She knew how to handle difficult interviews. Or at least, she thought she did. "So," Lara continued, leaning back in her chair with an air of casual confidence, "it has been quite a journey for you, hasn't it? I mean, we have all watched you go through so much. The highs, the very public lows." Robin Roberts shifted uncomfortably. Even she could sense this was not the warm welcome they had discussed in the pre-interview meeting. "I think everyone goes through challenges," Britney answered carefully. "I am just grateful to be here today, talking about my music." "Your music, yes," Lara said, and there it was again, that edge. "Let me ask you something. Do you ever wonder if people are actually interested in the music anymore, or if they are just tuning in to see what happens next in your personal life?" The studio went quiet. George Stephanopoulos looked down at his cards, clearly wanting no part of where this was heading. A few audience members exchanged glances. This was not the fluffy morning television they had expected. Britney's smile faltered for just a moment. "I think my fans care about the music. They always have." "Do they, though?" Lara pressed. And now she was leaning forward, like a prosecutor closing in. "Because from where I am sitting, it seems like your personal drama has always been more interesting than anything you have released in the past decade." "Lara," Robin Roberts interjected gently, trying to steer the conversation back to safer ground. "Maybe we should talk about the new album. Britney, I heard the single, and it is really catchy." But Lara was not done. She held up a hand to silence Robin, her eyes never leaving Britney. "I am just saying what everyone else is thinking. I mean, let us be honest here. When was the last time you had a real hit? When was the last time you did something that made people say, 'Wow, Britney Spears is still relevant'?" The words hung in the air like poison. Britney's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. Her team backstage was already moving, phones out, trying to figure out how to shut this down. But Britney was trapped in that chair, under those lights, with millions watching. "I think my fans would disagree with you," Britney said, and there was steel in her voice now. The softness was gone. "I have sold millions of albums. I have sold out arenas. I have worked incredibly hard. Sure, Lara waved dismissively. But let me ask you this, and I think it is a fair question. How much of your success was really yours, and how much of it was the machine around you? The producers, the songwriters, the image makers. Were you ever really in control, or were you just a product they sold? George Stephanopoulos finally spoke up. Lara, I think we should. No, George, let me finish, Lara cut him off. Now, I am asking legitimate questions here. Questions that people want answers to. Britney, you have made a lot of money off your fans over the years. Do you think you owe them some honesty? Some real accountability for the way things have gone? Britney was shaking now, but it was not fear. It was anger. Pure, righteous anger at being ambushed like this, at being talked to like she was nothing, like her entire career and everything she had survived meant nothing. Accountability? Britney repeated, her voice rising. You want to talk about accountability? How about the accountability of the media that followed me everywhere, that tore apart every decision I made, that treated me like I was not even human? How about that accountability, Lara? The studio audience began to murmur. Some people were nodding. They could feel the injustice of what was happening. Lara laughed, actually laughed, a cold sound that echoed through the studio. Oh, come on. You chose this life. You wanted to be famous. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot take the money and the fame and then complain when people ask questions. Asking questions is one thing, Britney shot back. But what you are doing is attacking me. You invited me here under false pretenses. I was told this would be about my new music, about positive things. Instead, you are sitting here trying to humiliate me on national television. Robin Roberts tried again. Britney, why don't you tell us about the creative process for the new album? But Lara talked right over her. Humiliate you? I am just being honest. Something you might want to try sometime. Tell me, and I am genuinely curious. Do you ever look back at some of your decisions and think, what was I thinking? The head shaving incident, for example? Do you regret that? That was one of the lowest points of my life, Britney said, and her voice was trembling now. I was going through something incredibly difficult. I was struggling. And instead of getting help, I had cameras in my face every single second. People like you made money off my pain. People like me? Lara's eyebrows shot up. I am a journalist. I report the news. If you make news, I report it. That is how this works. You are not a journalist right now, Britney said, and she was standing up now, the microphone clipped to her dress, still broadcasting every word. You are a bully. You brought me on this show to tear me down, to make yourself feel important by making me feel small. The producers in the control room were in full panic mode. This was live television. They could not cut away without making it even more obvious that something had gone terribly wrong. George Stephanopoulos stood up, trying to physically place himself between the two women. Ladies, let us all just take a breath here. No, Britney said firmly. No, I am not taking a breath. I am done taking breaths while people like her say whatever they want about me. I came here in good faith. I came here to talk about my music, to share something positive with people, and instead, I get this. I get her sitting there with this smug look on her face, acting like she is so much better than me. Lara stood up too now, her professional mask slipping. Better than you? I have a career built on actual work, not just looking pretty and lip-syncing. The gasp from the studio audience was audible. Even by the standards of what had already been said, this was beyond the pale. Robin Roberts put her face in her hands. George Stephanopoulos looked like he wanted to disappear. Did you just say, I lip sync? Britney's voice was dangerously quiet. Well, don't you? Lara challenged. I mean, let us be real here. How many of your performances are actually live? How many times have you just gone through the motions while a recording plays? I have performed live countless times, Britney said. I have sung live, danced for hours, given everything I have to my fans. But you know what? Even if I had lip-synced every single performance, that does not give you the right to treat me like this. I am a human being. I have feelings. I have worked my entire life in this industry, since I was a child, and I do not deserve to be spoken to this way by you or anyone else. Oh, here we go. Lara rolled her eyes. The victim card. It is always the victim card with you, isn't it? Nothing is ever your fault. It is always someone else. The media, the managers, the conservatorship. When are you going to take responsibility for your own life? That was it. That was the moment. The mention of the conservatorship, that painful chapter that had robbed Britney of her autonomy for so many years, was the final straw. How dare you? Britney's voice cracked with emotion. How dare you bring that up? You have no idea what that was like. You have no idea what it is like to have every aspect of your life controlled by other people, to not even be able to make the smallest decision for yourself. You sit here in your comfortable host chair, with your comfortable life, and you judge me. You judge everything I have been through like you have any right to. Lara crossed her arms. I have every right. This is my show. It is not just your show. Robin Roberts finally found her voice, and she sounded angry too. Lara, this has gone too far. This is not what we do here. Stay out of this, Robin, Lara snapped. No, I will not stay out of it. Robin stood up, her professional composure cracking. This is wrong. What you are doing right now is wrong. Britney came here as our guest, and you are treating her terribly. George Stephanopoulos nodded in agreement. Lara, we need to go to commercial. Now. We are not going to commercial, Lara said through gritted teeth. We are in the middle of an interview. This is not an interview, Britney said, and she was crying now, tears streaming down her face, but her voice was strong. This is an attack. This is you trying to destroy me for ratings. Well, congratulations, Lara. You got your moment. You got to be cruel to someone who has already been through enough. I hope it was worth it. Britney reached up and unclipped her microphone. The sound of it hitting the floor was picked up by the other microphones in the studio, a sharp crack that punctuated the moment. Where do you think you are going? Lara demanded. We are not done here. Yes, we are, Britney said simply. I am leaving. You cannot just leave in the middle of a live show. Lara's voice was shrill now, the control she had wielded so confidently slipping away. You have a contract. You agreed to be here. Sue me, Britney said, and she started walking toward the exit. Lara moved to block her path. You are being ridiculous. Sit down and finish the interview like a professional. Get out of my way, Britney said, and there was something in her tone that made Lara actually take a step back. But Lara, in her arrogance, could not let it go. She reached out and grabbed Britney's arm. I said, sit down. The studio erupted. The audience was on their feet. Some people shouting. Some people pulling out phones to record. Security guards were rushing from the wings. Robin Roberts was yelling at Lara to let go. George Stephanopoulos was trying to get between them. Take your hands off me, Britney said, her voice cutting through the chaos. Right now. Lara held on for a moment longer, and in that moment, something shifted. The cameras caught it all. The entitled host who had pushed and pushed, finally facing consequences. The pop star who had been pushed too far, finally standing up for herself. A security guard gently separated them. Ma'am, he said to Britney, let me escort you out. Britney nodded, wiping her tears, and let the guard lead her away. As she walked off the set, the studio audience began to applaud. It started with one person, then another, then a wave of applause that followed her all the way to the exit. They were not applauding the drama. They were applauding her courage, her refusal to be treated that way anymore. Behind her, Lara stood alone on the set, suddenly aware that she had miscalculated badly. Robin Roberts would not look at her. George Stephanopoulos was already removing his microphone. He clearly done with the whole situation. The producers were screaming in her earpiece, but Lara could barely hear them over the sound of her own heartbeat. "Well," Lara said into the camera, trying to regain some composure, "that was certainly unexpected." But her voice was shaking. The smugness was gone. She had wanted drama, wanted ratings, wanted to be the tough interviewer who did not hold back. What she got instead was a demonstration of what happens when you mistake cruelty for honesty, when you confuse bullying for journalism. In the hallway backstage, Britney was surrounded by her team. Her publicist was on the phone. Her manager was talking rapidly about next steps, but Britney was not listening. She was thinking about that moment when she unclipped the microphone. That moment when she chose herself over the show, or over the expectations, over the idea that she had to sit there and take it just because she was famous. Back in the studio, Robin Roberts was the one trying to salvage what was left of the show. "We are going to take a break," she said to the camera, her voice strained. "When we come back, we will have a cooking segment." The moment the cameras cut, Robin turned to Lara. "What was that? What on earth was that?" "I was doing my job," Lara said defensively. "I was asking real questions." "No," George Stephanopoulos said quietly but firmly. "You were being cruel. There is a difference." The three hosts stood there, the studio lights still blazing, the audience still buzzing with shocked energy. In the control room, the producers were already trying to figure out damage control. How do you spin this? How do you explain what just happened? But there was no spinning it. The truth was clear to everyone who had watched. A host had let her ego and her desire for a dramatic moment override basic decency. A guest had been ambushed, attacked, and pushed to her limit. And when that guest had finally stood up for herself, had finally said enough, she had been physically grabbed and told to sit back down. The makeup artist who had worked with Britney earlier was in tears. "She was so nice," she kept saying to anyone who would listen. "She was so kind to everyone backstage. She didn't deserve that." One of the camera operators, a veteran who had worked in television for 30 years, shook his head. "I have seen some things in this business," he said to his colleague. "But that was something else. That host went too far. Way too far." In the green room, Britney sat on the couch, her head in her hands. Her team was still talking, still planning, but she was exhausted. Not just from the confrontation, but from years of being treated like she was not quite human, not quite deserving of basic respect. "Do you want to make a statement?" her publicist asked gently. Britney looked up. "No," she said. "I think what happened out there speaks for itself." And it did. The video would spread across social media within minutes. The headlines would write themselves. But more than that, something had shifted. People had seen a woman be torn apart on live television for no reason other than a host's desire to be provocative. They had seen that same woman stand up, refuse to participate in her own humiliation, and walk away with dignity. Back on set, but as the commercial break ended and Robin Roberts tried to move forward with the rest of the show, Lara sat in her chair, scrolling through her phone. The reactions were already pouring in, and they were not good. They were not good at all. "Maybe I should apologize," Lara said quietly to Robin during another commercial break. Robin looked at her with something between pity and disgust. "You think an apology is going to fix what you just did? You attacked that woman for 10 minutes straight. You brought up the most painful parts of her life. You mocked her career. You grabbed her arm when she tried to leave. What apology could possibly cover that?" "I was just trying to get good television," Lara said weakly. "No," Robin said. "You were trying to feel powerful. You were trying to prove something. And all you proved is that you are willing to hurt someone else to get attention." The rest of the show limped along. The cooking segment, the weather, the usual cheerful morning show fare. But everyone knew. The crew knew. The audience knew. The millions of people watching at home knew. This was not just another television moment. This was a line being crossed, and everyone had watched it happen in real time. When the show finally ended, Lara retreated to her dressing room. No one followed her. No one knocked on the door to check if she was okay. For the first time in her long career, she was truly alone. The colleagues who had always laughed at her sharp comments, who had always praised her tough interview style, were nowhere to be found. Because this time, she had not been sharp. She had been cruel. And there was a difference. Even if she was only now beginning to understand it. Meanwhile, Britney was in a car, being driven away from the studio. She looked out the window at the city passing by. She thought about all the interviews she had done over the years. All the times she had smiled through inappropriate questions. All the times she had laughed off insults. All the times she had played along, been the good sport, given them what they wanted. Not this time. This time, she had said no. This time, she had walked away. And it felt like the most powerful thing she had done in years. Her phone was buzzing constantly. Messages of support were flooding in. Fellow artists, friends, fans who had watched it all unfold. They were not criticizing her for walking out. They were celebrating her for having the courage to do it. One message in particular caught her eye. It was from another female pop star who had been through her own media battles. It simply said, "Proud of you. Sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do." Britney smiled for the first time since leaving the studio. Not the practiced smile of a performer, but a real smile. A smile of someone who had stood up for themselves and survived. Back at the studio, the executive producers were in an emergency meeting. The phones were ringing off the hook. Viewers calling in. Media outlets wanting comments. Advertisers asking questions. This was a public relations nightmare, and it was entirely of their own making. "We need to make a statement," one producer said. "What do we say?" another asked. "That we ambushed our guest? That we let our host attack someone on live television?" "We say it was a spirited discussion that got out of hand," the first producer suggested. "No one is going to believe that," a third voice chimed in. "Everyone saw what happened. This is not something we can spin." And that was the truth of it. In an age where everything is recorded, where social media captures every moment, there was no hiding from what had occurred. Lara Spencer had treated a guest with contempt. That guest had refused to accept it, and millions of people had witnessed the entire thing. The meeting went on for hours, but no amount of discussion could change what had happened. The moment was out there, permanent and undeniable. In the days that would follow, there would be many conversations about what had happened on that set. About the responsibility of hosts. About the treatment of celebrities. About the line between tough journalism and simple cruelty. But in that moment, as Britney's car pulled up to her hotel and she stepped out into the afternoon sun, all she felt was relief. Relief that she had not stayed in that chair. Relief that she had not smiled through it. Relief that she had valued herself enough to walk away. The doorman held the door open for her. "Welcome back, Miss Spears," he said kindly. "Thank you," she replied, and she meant it. Because sometimes the most important welcome is the one you give yourself. The moment you decide you are worth more than how others treat you. The moment you choose dignity over compliance. The moment you understand that walking away from something toxic is not weakness, but strength. And that is exactly what had happened on that Good Morning America set. In 27 seconds of particularly vicious commentary, followed by minutes of escalating attacks, a host had revealed her true character. And in the simple act of unclipping a microphone and walking toward the exit, a pop star had revealed hers. The cameras had captured it all. The cruelty, the courage, the breaking point, the walk away. And in living rooms and offices and coffee shops across the country, people watched and recognized something universal. We have all been in situations where someone with power over us treated us poorly. We have all wondered if we had the courage to stand up, to say no, to walk away. Britney Spears had shown what that courage looked like. Not with a grand speech or a dramatic gesture, but with a simple refusal to participate in her own degradation. She had looked at a host who thought she was entitled to say anything, do anything, and had said no. Not with anger, though anger would have been justified, but with a quiet determination that was somehow more powerful than any outburst could have been. That is what people would remember. Not just the cruel questions or the physical grabbing, but the moment when someone who had been pushed and pushed and pushed finally stood up and said enough. The moment when dignity trumped obligation. The moment when self-respect became more important than the show going on. As Britney rode the elevator up to her suite, she could still hear Lara's voice in her head, the mocking tone, the dismissive comments, but she could also hear the applause from the studio audience, the support from Robin Roberts, the sound of her own voice saying, "Get out of my way," with certainty. Those were the sounds she chose to focus on. Not because the cruel words did not hurt. They did, but because she knew she did not have to let them define her. She did not have to sit and take it. She could stand up. She could walk away. She could choose herself. And in that moment, on that set, that is what she had done. Not her team, who had envisioned a nice promotional appearance. Not the producers, who had expected a standard celebrity interview. Not even Lara, who had thought she was in complete control of the situation. But sometimes the most important moments are the unplanned ones. The moments when everything goes wrong and someone has to decide who they are going to be. This had been one of those moments. And everyone who watched knew exactly what they had seen. A person in power abusing that power, and another person finding the strength to walk away from it. But sometimes that is everything. The hotel room was quiet when Britney finally sat down, the city skyline stretching out before her. Her team had left her alone. Her phone sat face down on the coffee table, still buzzing. She thought about the morning, how it had started with such hope. She had picked out her outfit carefully. She had practiced talking points about the new album. She had been nervous, yes, but also excited. Instead, it had become another chapter in a very old story. People thinking they owned her. Thinking they had the right to say whatever they wanted. Thinking she would just sit there and take it. But not this time. She replayed the moment. When Lara had laughed at her, that cold, dismissive laugh. When she had known, absolutely known, that she could not stay in that chair 1 second longer. Her phone buzzed again. She picked it up, scrolling through the messages. Hundreds of them. And as she read them, something unexpected happened. She started to cry, but these were different tears. Not humiliation or anger, but relief. Message after message said the same thing. Thank you for standing up. You did not deserve that. You showed so much strength. From fans, from artists, from women who had been in their own versions of that chair. She had given them something, not through music or performance, but through a moment of honest humanity, a moment when she chose herself. Back at the studio, Lara Spencer sat in her dressing room, staring at her phone. The messages were very different. Her agent had called 3 times, the network executives twice. The door opened. It was one of the executive producers. "We need to talk," he said, and as Lara followed him, she understood something. She had thought she was in control, that she had power. But real power was not the ability to tear someone down. It was the courage to walk away when someone tried. Britney Spears had shown what real power looked like.